There is a verse in the Latin Bible where the word Lucifer appears. It's about Jesus. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 19. The Latin says the Lucifer rises in your hearts, and the one it's talking about is Christ. That word is in Jerome's Bible 3 times, Job chapter 11, Isaiah chapter 14, and 2 Peter chapter 1, 3 times. And only one of those 3 is the Babylonian king everybody thinks the word belongs to. So if Lucifer is a word the Bible uses about Jesus, how on earth did it become the name of the devil? And one more thing, because it's where this ends up. By the time we're done, you're going to know his actual name, the real one. And when you hear it, you're going to recognize it immediately because you have heard it used on you. Lucifer is the most famous name in the history of evil. It's on album covers, it's in film titles, it's in 1,000 sermons and 10,000 paintings. If you asked 100 people on the street to name the devil, most of them would give you that word. And it appears exactly once in the King James Bible. Once. In a poem that tells you in its own heading that it's about a dead king. Everything you think you know about that name comes from what happened to it after it was written. So let's look at the verse. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. The King James. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? The New King James keeps it. O Lucifer, son of the morning. Now the others. The ESV. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of dawn. The NIV. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. The NASB. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. The Berean Standard. How you have fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the dawn. Same Hebrew. 6 English Bibles. 2 of them print a name. 4 of them print an astronomy term. You can check this yourself in about 30 seconds. That's not a rhetorical flourish. Open 2 Bibles. So what's actually under there? The Hebrew word is helel. Say it. Helel. It comes from a root that means to shine, so shining one. And it's paired with 2 more words. Ben Shachar. Say it. Ben Shachar. Ben means sun. Shachar means dawn. Shining one, son of the dawn. That is the language of the brightest light in the sky just before sunrise. The last star still burning when everything else has faded out, sitting there in the blue while the sun comes up behind it. It's Venus. The Hebrew isn't naming a demon, it's describing a planet. And then it's using that planet as an insult. Because here's the thing that stopped me. The answer was never hidden. Go back 8 verses. Isaiah 14, verse 4 in the ESV. You will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon, how the oppressor has ceased, the insolent fury ceased. The King James calls it a proverb against the king of Babylon. The poem names its own subject, in its own heading, 8 verses before the famous line. It's a taunt song. That's a real genre. It's what you sing when a tyrant finally dies and you're allowed, at last, to say out loud what you actually thought of him. You mock him. You say, look at you now. You called yourself the morning star, and here you are in the dirt with the rest of us. And that's exactly the shape of the line. How are you fallen from heaven? It isn't a report. It's a jeer. It's the sound a crowd makes when the man who could have had them killed last week is dead this week. That's the poem. It isn't being coy. It says so at the top. And I want to be honest about how that landed on me, because I'd read that chapter a dozen times and never once read verse 4. Nobody's hiding verse 4. It's just that when a verse gets famous enough, you stop arriving at it from the top of the page. You arrive at it from a sermon, or a meme, or a memory, and then it isn't in a chapter anymore. It's just floating. Now, you might reasonably ask why any of this matters. So we got a name wrong. So what? Here's what. A name you get wrong is a name you stop hearing. Everybody in this story is out looking for a monster, something with horns, something with a name, something you'd recognize if it walked into the room. And meanwhile, there's a voice. You know the one. It runs at about 2 in the morning. It only ever accuses. It has your entire history on file, and it never, not once, mentions anything you did right. It says, you're not forgiven. You're too far gone. Everyone else, maybe. Not you. You of all people. If you've heard that voice, hear this clearly. You're not imagining it, and it isn't your conscience. It has a name. It's just not the one you were told. Lucifer was never his name. It's an ordinary Latin word for the morning star, and the same Latin Bible uses it about Jesus Christ, who calls himself the bright morning star. And the names that actually are his are not names at all. They're job descriptions. And you already know what the job sounds like. So how did the word get there? Around the year 400, Jerome sits down to render the Hebrew Bible into Latin. He gets to Isaiah 14, verse 12, and he needs a Latin word for helel, shining one, morning star. And he picks the obvious one, Lucifer. Say it, Lu-ki-fer. It means light-bearing, lux, light. The ending, fer, bearing, light-bearer. That's it. That's all it is. It's what a Roman called the planet Venus when it came up before the sun. It's not a name. It's not sinister. It's not even particularly interesting. Any Latin speaker would have used that word about a planet without thinking about it twice. It's an astronomy term with a poetic edge, the way we still say the evening star, and don't mean anything mystical by it. And notice what Jerome has done, which is nothing clever at all. The Hebrew said, shining one. He wrote down the Latin for shining one. That's the whole transaction, a translator translating. And he uses that word 3 times in the entire Bible. Job chapter 11, verse 17. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, about the Babylonian king. And 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 19. That third one. The Greek underneath it is phosphoros. Say it, phosphoros. It means light bringer, morning star. Greek light bringer, Latin light bearer, English morning star. Same idea, 3 languages. And in 2 Peter, the one it's describing is Christ rising in your hearts. But here's the one that actually got me. And you don't need Latin for it. You don't need Greek. You need one Bible. Revelation chapter 22, verse 16. The ESV. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you about these things for the churches. I am the root and the descendant of David, the bright morning star. The bright morning star. Now open the King James, the same Bible, the one that printed Lucifer about 900 pages earlier. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Same image, same book, same English translation. In one place, the morning star is a Babylonian tyrant being mocked in a funeral song, and the translators gave it a Latin name that became a demon. In the other, the morning star is Jesus of Nazareth, describing himself on the last page of the Bible. 2 words for the same thing. One of them became a curse, and one of them became a hymn. If this is the kind of thing you want more of, subscribe. This is what every video here does. One word followed all the way down. Now stop. Before anybody decides Jerome was careless or sneaky or building a mythology, Jerome knew. He explicitly distinguished between the 2 uses. He knew perfectly well that the Lucifer in 2 Peter was Christ, and he said so. He wasn't naming a demon. He was translating an ordinary word for the morning star, twice, in 2 places where the text in front of him said, morning star. He did his job correctly, both times. The name is not his doing. The name is what happened to his word over the next 1,200 years. So where did it come from? And here's where the chronology does something I genuinely didn't expect. Origen of Alexandria, roughly 185 to 254. He's among the first people we know of to read Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 as descriptions of Satan's fall. Tertullian, writing around 207, says that if you turn to the prophecy of Ezekiel, you'll see this angel was good by creation and became corrupt by choice. And that in the person of the prince of Tyre, it's speaking about the devil. Now count the years. Jerome is working around the year 400. Origen died around 254. Tertullian was writing around 207, so Origen is 150 years before Jerome. Tertullian is nearly 200. Read that again, because I had to. The reading came first, the Latin came second. So the Latin didn't cause this. Nobody read the word Lucifer and invented a devil out of it. It's the other way round. The devil reading was already there, sitting in the church's imagination for over a century, and then Jerome's word arrived, and the reading finally had something to wear. And the hinge that made the reading possible in the first place was a single line in Luke. Chapter 10, verse 18. Jesus says he saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Connect that line to Isaiah's, "How are you fallen from heaven?" and suddenly a taunt against a dead tyrant can be heard as something much larger. That's the move. That's the whole move. Two verses joined. Whether that's what Luke 10:18 means is its own argument, and I'm not going to settle it here. And then it's set, like concrete. Medieval theology took Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 and Revelation 12 and wove them into one story. One narrative of angelic rebellion with a beginning and a villain and a name. Dante's Inferno, 1320. Milton's Paradise Lost, 1667. By then, Lucifer wasn't a translation of anything. He was a character. He had dialogue. And when the King James translators sat down in 1611, the Vulgate had been the Bible of the West for 1,000 years, and Lucifer had already been the devil's name for centuries. So they did what translators do. They used the word their readers already knew. And I want to be careful here, because it would be very easy to be snide about this, and it would also be wrong. They weren't careless. They weren't hiding anything. They made a reasonable choice with the language they had for the people they had. It's just that their reasonable choice is why every English reader since has opened Isaiah 14 and felt like the name was simply there, in the text, where God put it. So, line it up. A Hebrew word for a planet. A Latin word for the same planet, used 3 times, one of them about Christ. A reading that arrived 150 years before the Latin did. A poem that says in its own heading that it's about a dead king. And a name that 4 out of 6 English Bibles don't print at all. Now, I have to give you the other side properly because it's real and it's serious, and 18 centuries of careful people have held it. Go to Ezekiel 28. It's an oracle addressed to the ruler of Tyre, a wealthy Phoenician trading city on the coast. Same setup as Isaiah, a named human king. But listen to how the language climbs. The figure is called the signet of perfection, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. He's placed in Eden, the garden of God. He's called the anointed cherub who covers. He's said to have been on the holy mountain of God, and he was perfect in his ways from the day he was created until iniquity was found in him. Now, that is an enormous amount to say about a man who sold purple dye. You see the problem. The language doesn't fit the frame. It strains. It keeps going past where a description of a Phoenician trader king should stop. And when serious readers have heard a second voice underneath the first one, it's because of that. Not because they were sloppy, because the text does something strange. That's the case. It's a real case. And here's the case against. And it doesn't come from a skeptic or a modern academic or from me. It comes from John Calvin. Calvin said the exposition of Isaiah 14 as referring to Satan had arisen from ignorance, because the context, he said, plainly shows that these statements have to be understood in reference to the king of the Babylonians. That's Calvin, on Isaiah 14. Saying the Satan reading is a mistake. So this isn't the internet against the church. This is Calvin against Tertullian. It's been running for a very long time, and I'm not going to hand you a verdict on it. And I'll tell you something else that complicates it in the other direction. Whatever Isaiah 14 is about, the New Testament does name pride as the thing that took him down. And it does it so casually you'd miss it entirely. 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 6. Paul is giving Timothy instructions about church leadership. It's admin. It's a list of qualifications. Don't appoint a recent convert, he says, in case he gets puffed up with conceit and falls into the condemnation of the devil. The condemnation of the devil. Just like that. In a paragraph about staffing. No fanfare, no cosmic backstory, no 5 I wills. Paul assumes Timothy already knows what the devil was condemned for and doesn't bother explaining it, because why would you explain something everybody knows? And what he assumes everybody knows is that it was pride. Not violence, not appetite, not some spectacular, monstrous evil you'd see coming. Getting puffed up. The most respectable sin there is, the one that grows quietly in gifted people, standing close to holy things. So the traditional reading might be building its portrait out of the wrong 2 chapters, but it isn't wrong about the diagnosis, that part sitting in a church admin memo. But there's something in this passage that almost nobody quoting it has ever noticed, and once you see it, the poem changes shape. Son of the Dawn isn't just poetry. Shakar, dawn, is a known deity in the Ugaritic texts. He's a minor god, and he has a twin brother, Shalim, dusk. Both of them sons of the high god El, the high god of that whole world. And between them, the 2 brothers were the morning star and the evening star. Venus, in its 2 appearances, the one you see before sunrise and the one you see after sunset. Which is, if you think about it, an extraordinarily good piece of observation for people with no telescopes. The same light, twice, at opposite ends of the day. And they made it 2 brothers, dawn and dusk, sons of El. So son of the dawn isn't decoration, it's an address, it's a family. Isaiah's first hearers would have recognized it the way you'd recognize a name from a story you grew up on. And it goes further. Many scholars hold that Helel ben Shakar echoes a specific Canaanite god, Oftar, an astral deity identified with Venus. And in the Ugaritic myths from late Bronze Age Syria, Oftar has a story. Baal dies, and Baal's throne on Mount Zaphon stands empty. So Oftar climbs the mountain to take it, and he fails. He's bright, he's ambitious, he ascends, and he can't hold the throne, and he comes back down. Now read the 5 I wills again. 5 times this figure speaks. I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. 5 times. I will, I will, I will. And look at the 3rd one. I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly. Where? The Hebrew is Saphon. Say it, Saphon. It means north, and several modern versions don't translate it at all. They treat it as a proper name because that's what it is. The NIV prints the name right there in the verse, Mount Zaphon. The NRSV does it. The Jewish Publication Society Tanakh does it. Mount Zaphon. That's Baal's mountain. That's the address. The most quoted proof text for cosmic pride in the entire Bible contains a Canaanite postal code. It's printed by name in a mainstream Bible, and almost nobody who quotes the verse has any idea. Now careful, this is a proposal about background. It's not a proven dependency. And I want to be really clear about what it does and doesn't mean, because this is exactly the kind of thing that gets turned into the Bible just copied pagan myths. That's not what's happening. Isaiah isn't borrowing a myth, he's weaponizing one. He takes a story his audience already knows, the bright, ambitious star god who climbs the holy mountain and can't hold the throne, and he points it at a Babylonian tyrant and says, "That's you. You're him. You climbed and you couldn't hold it, and now look at you." It's the same move Psalm 48 makes. Verse 2 takes Zaphon, the God's mountain, the famous one, the address everybody in the ancient Near East knew, and hands the title to Zion, to a modest hill in Judah with a temple on it. Not that mountain, this one. The real cosmic mountain isn't the one in the stories, it's the one you can walk up. That's not borrowing. Nobody reads Psalm 48 and concludes Israel worshipped Baal. It's a prophet and a poet using the only cultural reference every single one of their hearers would recognize in order to say something devastating about a dead king and about whose mountain it actually is. So what is his name? And here's the joke sitting at the center of 2,000 years of this. Satan is not a name. It's a Hebrew word. It means adversary, accuser. It gets used in the Hebrew Bible about human enemies too, ordinary people who oppose you. And when it refers to the celestial one, it almost always carries the definite article, ha-satan. Say it, ha-satan. The accuser. The. You don't put the in front of a name. You don't say the Michael. You don't say the Gabriel. The definite article is the grammar telling you out loud that this is a title. It's a role. It's a job. And the other one is the same. Diabolos. Say it, diabolos. That's the Greek word we get devil from, and it means slanderer. It comes from a verb that means to hurl, as in hurling accusations. In the Greek Old Testament, when they came to ha-satan in Job and Zechariah, they rendered it ho diabolos, the slanderer. So both of the words we use as his names are descriptions of a function. We don't actually call him the devil. We call him the slanderer. And what does the job consist of? Look at where he actually shows up with that definite article on him. Job, Zechariah. Not a battlefield either time. Not a pit. Not a throne room in hell. Not a war. A court. Both times, he's standing in a proceeding and he has a function in it. And from his appearances in Job and in Zechariah, the job comes down to one thing: calling attention to the unworthiness of mankind. That's it. That's the job description. That's the whole role. And notice, it isn't a lie exactly. That's what makes it work. He isn't inventing anything in those scenes. He's pointing at something real and asking everyone to look at it. And look at his opening move in Genesis 3. It isn't violence. He has no weapon. He doesn't threaten anybody. He asks a question. Did God really say? Not force, a suggestion. That's what a slanderer does. He doesn't fight you. He talks. Here's the picture that finally made this land for me. Think about what a prosecutor actually does. A prosecutor's job is not to be right. That's not the job. The job is to prosecute. You could hand a prosecutor the most obviously innocent defendant who ever lived, and the job description would not change by one word. He stands up. He makes the case against. Not because it's true, because that is his function. That's what the word means. And here's the thing about a prosecutor. He doesn't jump you in an alley. He doesn't need to. He talks. He assembles. He selects. He takes the true things, and they can all be true, every one of them, and he arranges them into the shape of a verdict. Everything he says about you might be technically accurate, and the entire picture still a lie, because his job was never the whole picture. His job was the case against. So when you hear a voice that only ever prosecutes, a voice that has your entire history filed and cross-referenced and ready, that can produce on demand everything you've ever done wrong, in order, with dates. And that has never once, not in your whole life, mentioned a single thing you did right. That's not your conscience. Your conscience is interested in the truth, and the truth includes the good. And it isn't God. Whatever else you believe about God, He is not building a case against you. He already has all the evidence, and He came anyway. That's somebody doing his job. That's the accuser, doing the only thing the accuser does. And something changes when you know that. You stop looking for a monster, and you start recognizing a technique. Because the technique is the tell. It's never force. It's a question, and then a case. The oldest weapon in the book is a suggestion, and it always has been, ever since a voice in a garden said, "Did God really say?" That voice at 2 a.m, the one with the file, the one that's so precise, so well evidenced, so devastatingly reasonable. You thought that was honesty. You thought that was you finally being realistic about yourself, with the lights off and the excuses gone. It was somebody doing his job. And the job has a name. It just isn't Lucifer. Here's what stays with me. We gave him a name he never had. And of all the names to give him, it was a beautiful one. Light-bearer. The star that comes up before the sun. The one you see when the night is finally ending. We took the loveliest word in the Latin Bible and handed it to the accuser. And here's the part I can't quite get to the bottom of. The one who actually owns that word doesn't seem to have minded, Because Jesus just keeps using it. Same Bible, same English. 900 pages after the King James prints Lucifer, there he is on the last page, saying it about himself. I am the bright and morning star. As if the theft never happened. As if it never even occurred to him to want it back. I don't know what to do with that exactly, but I know it's the shape of something. So here's the word. The word that just meant a planet. The word Jerome used 3 times, and one of those times he meant Christ. The word 4 out of 6 English Bibles don't print at all. The word a poem hung around the neck of a dead king, and said so in its own heading, 8 verses early. The word Calvin said we'd misread out of plain ignorance. The word Dante and Milton turned into a character with dialogue. And the word that was never, at any point, in any language, his name. His name is a job. If this is what you want more of, subscribe. One word, all the way down, wherever it actually goes. So let me leave you with this. There is a voice whose entire job is to tell you what you are not. It's very good at it. It's been doing it since the garden, and it has never once needed to raise its hand, because it works by talking. And there is a morning star. And the promise isn't that the voice stops. The promise is that the light comes up anyway. That it rises in your hearts the way Peter said it does. The accuser gets the night. He does not get the morning.